as today's syllabus is slightly more. Okay, so yesterday we had just covered Montague Chelmsford reforms, which are also called as Government of India Act. You remember these? Yesterday we have covered Montague Chelmsford reforms or Montford reforms, है ना? कल हमने किया था. So today we'll just see the slides for the Montford reforms and then we'll move further. Okay. So in the Montford reforms, okay, before starting, yes, there was one thing. Meenu, you had asked one thing yesterday, that Mal Adalat, na? Meenu, are you there? Meenu, are you there in the class? Meenu? Okay. Yeah, Meenu.
Yes.
मीनू आपने पूछा था ना माल अदालत का.
Yes.
मीनू, ये जो माल अदालत थी ना, माल अदालत वर opened by actually Cornwallis. ठीक है, they were established by Cornwallis at the time. जिस टाइम पे Cornwallis कोड लेके आया था ना, judicial reforms were implemented. At that time, these codes were formed. So basically, these were the revenue codes. And they were established in each district. Each district revenue code, which would be exclusively dealing with the revenue matters, and they would be collected. They would be like presided over by the collector. Okay. Now, when this act came, Charter Act of 1793, that this act abolished these courts, Mal Adalats. So these were the Mal Adalats which were established by Lord Cornwallis. Okay, Meenu?
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Back to Montague Chelmsford reforms. So under these reforms, British government declared for the first time that its objective was what? Responsible government. This we have covered yesterday. Then central and provincial subjects were introduced. One list was central list, another was provincial list, and this provincial list was further divided into two: transferred subjects and reserved subjects. It introduced bicameralism. What were the name of the two houses? Manju, what were the name of the two houses?
You are now unmuted.
Legislative Council and Council of States.
Very good. Legislative Assembly and Council of States. So two houses का introduction हो गया था. There were 3 members of Executive Council that were to be Indians. So 1909 में 1 member था, 1919 में 10 साल के बाद में there were 3 members now. Separate electorates का जो provision था that was extended to 6 as well as to Europeans. Then franchise was on the basis of property, education or tax. इन 3 चीजों के ऊपर franchise था. Franchise means voting rights. This franchise means voting rights. Voting rights was on the basis of property, education, and tax. Okay. Then it created a new office of High Commissioner for India in London, and his salary was to be paid from which funds? Indian funds or British funds? British funds.
You are now unmuted.
Sir, Indian
funds. Very good. Indian funds. Then it also established Public Service Commission. Okay. So Public Service Commission then finally was established in the year 1926. Though this provision was there in 1919 Act, but actually it was established in which year? 1926. Please don't get confused that Public Service Commission was there in 1919. Okay, it was established in 1926, though the provision was there in this reforms, Montague Chelmsford reforms. Then it separated central budget from the provincial budget. Now there would be 2 types of budget, central budget and provincial budget. Like at present we are having a central budget and state budget we are having. Which is the article which is dealing central budget? This is the article, anyone? Which article of Indian Constitution at present? Pardon, Disha?
You are now unmuted.
110 or 111, I think.
110 or 11, बहुत आसपास हो.
112.
Very good. 112. 112 is the article. And what is Does the name budget is written in the Indian Constitution?
You are now
No, sir.
unmuted.
No. Financial statements.
You are now unmuted.
Very good. Very good. Very good. It is written annual financial statement. The word budget कहीं भी नहीं लिखा हुआ है. This thing is called as budget. Okay. Then it also provided a commission. It also provided a commission that would be constituted after 10 years. Why? To see the working of these act. ये इस एक्ट ने कैसा काम किया उसके लिए पहले से ही तय कर दिया कि 10 साल बाद एक और कमीशन बनाया जाएगा. So was there any commission in the year 1929? Was there any commission? Yeah, there was a commission, but it was like preponed. It was preponed to 1927. Simon Commission. ठीक है, साइमन कमीशन इसी के लिए था. Okay, so it was preponed. Date was preponed to 1927. When we will do the Simon Commission, I'll tell you why it was preponed. And it had arrived in India in the year 1928. And during its arrival, Lala Lajpat Rai was lathi charged.
Plutus IAS.
Because Lala Lajpat Rai was lathi charged, and the police officer who had ordered the lathi charge, he was killed by Bhagat Singh, and then Bhagat Singh was hanged. है ना? So this is the story. We'll do it later. So coming back, now we'll see in this way. Yeah, Disha? See.
You are now
Just
unmuted.
reconnecting, sir.
Okay. One is Legislative Assembly, another is Council of States. The Legislative Assembly is having 145 members, and it is the term for Legislative Assembly is 3 years. For Council of States, the total number of members are 60, and the tenure is 5 years. Now, Legislative Assembly, they were elected members as well as nominated members. So 104 members were elected and 41 were nominated. In Council of States, out of 60 members, 33 were elected and 27 were nominated. So this was all about these things. Then what happened to diarchy? This is the diarchy. Provincial subjects were divided into two types. One were transferred subjects, another were reserved subjects. Reserved subjects like law and order, finance, land revenue, irrigation. So much important things, much important subjects were taken over by whom? The governor and his executive council. उन्होंने अपने लिए इनको reserve कर लिया था. These subjects were reserved for them. ठीक है? And the transferred subjects were like education, health, local government, industry, agriculture. So all these things were to be looked by the governors and the ministers, the elected ministers, जिसमें Indians होंगे, है ना? Indian ministers. So this thing, when two types of subjects are available, two types of powers are available, governor and the ministers, and governor and his executive council, this thing was called as diarchy. Okay, and diarchy was introduced by which act? Government of India Act 1919, which is also called as Montfort reforms. Montague Chelmsford reforms, because Montague was the secretary of the state and Chelmsford was whom? He was the viceroy. Okay. Now we'll see some of the demands of the Lucknow Pact. हमने ये slide पुरानी slide है, इसमें से देखते हैं. We'll see how many demands were met and how many were not met. So one of the demands were demand for dominion status. Was this demand met by this Government of India Act 1919? No, ऐसा तो कुछ भी नहीं हुआ. So this demand was not met. The next demand was the representation in central legislature increase the number of members to 150 and 2/3 to be Muslims. Was this demand met? Yes, this demand was met. Muslim will get separate electorate on the 2/3 seat. Yes, this demand was also met. Separation of judiciary from executive. This demand was met or not? No. Salary of Secretary of State, this demand was met or not? Yes. And the term of Legislative Council to be made 5 years? Yes. So we have seen some of the demands were met. ठीक है, लखनऊ पैक्ट की कुछ डिमांड्स तो एटलीस्ट कुछ मानी गई थी कब, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया 1919 में. ठीक है, but now we need to see what were the drawbacks. The most important drawbacks, there were two most important drawbacks. The first drawback was the extension of separate electorates. ठीक है, पहले ही ये चीज बहुत गलत थी एंड अभी इसका एक्सटेंशन हो गया, सेपरेट इलेक्टोरेट. ठीक है, the another thing which was a great drawback of this, that was the franchise. For voting rights, this voting rights was very limited, and if one asked that if women was having any franchise or not, women की voting rights के बारे में, so there was demand of women to include to give women the this franchise voting rights women को मिलना चाहिए. They were demand, but Montague Chelmsford reforms, it did not give them, at least for the central legislature. ठीक है, central legislature में no, women were not having voting rights. But in the provincial legislature, the act allowed provincial councils के ऊपर छोड़ दिया, okay, if you want you can give, if you don't want, don't give. So this was the case. So when these provincial councils were to determine the voting rights for women, but if they want to give voting rights, so those women must have huge property or income or very high educational levels, then only voting rights would be given. Then which was the first place which gave women voting rights? Which province? It was Madras. ठीक है, मद्रास ने सबसे पहले वोटिंग राइट्स दी थी. Okay, next point. At the center, legislature had no control over the viceroy and his executive council. No doubt Indians were there, है ना, Indians elected members थे Indians, but center में there was no control over the viceroy and his executive council. These were the super strong, है ना, super strong persons. At the level of provinces क्या हो गया था? They were parallel administration. It was unworkable, and that too the important subjects like irrigation, finance, police, press, justice, they were reserved for whom? They were reserved for the governor and his council, है ना. The provincial ministers had no control over finances. This is one of the most important part, finances. अभी अगर आपसे कोई पूछे, if someone asks you which is the most important minister apart from prime minister, which are the most important ministers, so आप किसे किसे इंक्लूड करोगे इसके अंदर? ऑब्वियसली हर किसी को पता होगा, विल इंक्लूड किसे किसे करेंगे? वेरी गुड, होम मिनिस्टर, देन फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर, और किसको करेंगे? ओके, कृतिका इज सेइंग डिफेंस मिनिस्टर. ओके, आई विल आल्सो इंक्लूड डिफेंस, ही इज आल्सो वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. डिफेंस मिनिस्टर, है ना. These are the most important portfolios, है ना. अभी ये सारे पोर्टफोलियोज किसके पास हैं? ये सारे पोर्टफोलियो तो रिजर्व सब्जेक्ट्स हैं. ठीक है, निखिल इज इंक्लूडिंग हेल्थ मिनिस्टर. हेल्थ तो निखिल हमारे यहाँ पे हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन को तो सबसे लास्ट में आता है. हेल्थ एंड एजुकेशन कम्स एट द वेरी लास्ट एंड. ठीक है, so these were the drawbacks of Government of India Act 1990. So this act is clear to all of you? Montague Chelmsford reforms, is it clear to all of you? Harsh clear है? Okay, Harsh clear है. Kritika, Preksha.
Yeah, the question.
Yeah, please.
Sir, in the Lucknow Pact, the demand was to give 2/3 of the seats to the Muslims, sir.
Yeah.
But here, sir, out of Indians had around 125 seats, sir, out of which 41 were given to the Muslims, sir. So did it make 2/3 of it, sir? It's only adding up to around 1/3 of the seats which were given to the Muslim electorate, sir.
Just a second. I'll see. Muslims will get separate electorate on the 2/3 of the seats. Actually, it is misprint. This should be 1/3. This should be 1/3 because out of 75, 25 were to be Muslims. Na? and 25 comes 1/3. So it should be 1/3. Okay, Arpit? This was a typological error.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, then we'll move ahead. Yeah, see, Subhojit is also saying in the slide it will be 1/3. Yeah, Subhojit, thank you. पहले बताना चाहिए था Subhojit. ठीक है, thank you.
Sir,
Okay,
I
now
have a
the
doubt.
yes, Eloni.
Sir, in the previous class, you stopped to resolve. You stopped on the topic to resolve issue of deadlock. There will be three kinds of sittings:
Yeah.
joint conferences, and committees. So, is this a
Huh.
part of Government of India Act 1990, or it was something separate topic? I mean,
No, no, no.
we were
Same.
just
It was a
considering.
part of this. It was part of this because क्या हुआ था ना? There were two houses now. One is Legislative Assembly, another is the Council of States. Now, if a bill needs to get passed, it needs to be passed by the Legislative Assembly as well as इसको Council को भी pass करना पड़ेगा. So maybe ऐसी कोई situation आ जाए where one is passing and another is not. Or this is not passing, this is passing. If at all is such type of situation emerges, so as per this act, the provisions of this joint sittings, joint conferences, and joint committees were there. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
It was the vision. Actually, you can say it was the vision of the British Parliament. कि उसको पता था ऐसे होगा तो ऐसे होना ही है. Because उसके यहाँ पे already there were already two houses, so it was well experienced. Okay. Okay. So Bojit is saying
Fine.
something also does not mention the time by which India will have responsible government. Isn't a drawback? Yeah, Subhojit, you can mention it as a drawback because it was not giving a time frame by what time India would be having responsible government. Yeah, we can add it, Subhojit. Okay. So now the next topic is Rowlatt Act, and in continuation, we will also deal the favorite topic of Nikhil, that is Jallianwala Bagh. Okay, Nikhil, are you there in the class today? I want you.
Actually,
I am there, sir. I am very excited, sir.
Okay, okay, ठीक है. ठीक है. So story, what is the story of 1919? What had happened in actually 1919? What is Rowlatt Act? So the connections of Rowlatt Act actually deals with the World War I. Can anyone tell me why? How? It is connected to World War One. I am talking about Rowlatt Act. Rowlatt Act. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay. Rowlatt Act is connected to World War One. Can anyone tell me how?
Yes,
Anyone?
sir.
Yeah.
During the World War, Britain needs soldiers. So Gandhiji, Congress promised Indians would go and fight for the Britain and the alliance. But after that, Britain promised, but all these promises was not accomplished, and instead of all the promises, the government issued Rowlatt Act, which means trial, which means punishment without the trial.
Okay. Actually, no. See, I'll tell you. Yeah, Subhojit, this is correct. This is correct, Subhojit. Okay, I'll tell you what happened. World War One कब हुआ था? 1914 से 1918. ठीक है? World War One का duration. Now, British government, it passed one act. The name of the act was Defense of India Act. Defense of India Act 1915. It passed this act, Defense of India Act 1915. So what was in this act? In this act, it was like during the World War, if there is anything revolutionary activity and such type of a thing, so to contain that thing, to contain the revolutionary terrorism, okay, to contain the revolutionary terrorism, this act was passed, Defense of India Act 1915. But problem, what was the problem? That this act would be continued after 6 months, 6 months after the World War ended. Okay, so after this World War ended, in this 1918. So that means the power of British, like it was having by this act, it would be over. Getting or not? Okay, दोबारा से बताता हूँ. World War I 1915 में ब्रिटिश ने एक एक्ट पास किया. British enacted an act in 1950. The name of the act was Defense of India Act. Defense of India Act 1915. This act was to contain revolutionaries. ठीक है, अगर इस ड्यूरेशन में, बिकॉज वॉर के टाइम पे ब्रिटिश का ध्यान नहीं हटना चाहिए ना वॉर से, सो उसके लिए उसने एक बहुत ही ड्रैकोनियन लॉ बनाया था 1950, ये वर्ल्ड डिफेंस ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट. बट द थिंग वाज, व्हाट वाज द पीरियड ऑफ दिस एक्ट, कब तक ये एक्ट काम करेगा? सो दिस एक्ट वाज मेड फॉर द पीरियड till the time World War I is there, plus 6 months after the war. ठीक है, plus 6 months after the war. So that means in 1918, the war ended, है ना, World War ended. So after 6 months, what will happen? The Defense of India Act, it will also expire. So the British government, what it did, it formed a committee. So what to do? How to control the revolutionaries? ठीक है? How to control the revolutionaries after World War I? After World War I कि अभी खत्म होने वाला है, अब क्या करें हम इसके लिए? So committee was made, and the chairman of this committee was Sidney Rowlatt. जिसके नाम के ऊपर ये एक्ट हम बोलते हैं, रॉलेट एक्ट. ठीक है, सो द चेयरमैन ऑफ दिस कमिटी वाज सिडनी रॉलेट. सो सिडनी रॉलेट, व्हाट ही डिड, ही वाज अ ग्रेट नेशनलिस्ट, है ना, ग्रेट नेशनलिस्ट फॉर ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट, नॉट फॉर इंडियंस. ही वाज अ ग्रेट नेशनलिस्ट. सो व्हाट इट डिड, इट प्रूव्ड द लिंक्स ऑफ जर्मन्स. It proved the links of Germans with Indian revolutionaries. उसने बोला जर्मनी के तो बड़े तकड़े लिंक्स हैं इंडियन रेवोल्यूशनरीज के साथ में, है ना. And we need to extend this act. We need to extend this Defense of India Act. Otherwise, these revolutionary activities, they will increase. So we need to extend this act. फिर पूछा ब्रिटिश गवर्नमेंट ने, अच्छा कब तक के लिए एक्सटेंड करें हम इसको? Then Rowlatt said we need to extend it indefinitely. Okay, we need to extend it indefinitely. So the extension of Defense of India Act is called as Rowlatt Act. ठीक है, extension of Defense of India Act 1915 is called as Rowlatt Act. The official name of Rowlatt Act is Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act. Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act 1919. So this was the background. Getting the point? यहाँ तक सबको clear है? Is this clear? Is this thing clear to all of you till here? Got it? How this Rowlatt Act? Okay. Okay. Then what happened? What was the objective of this act? Rowlatt Act का objective क्या था? The objective was to abolish any revolt या any conspiracy. Any revolt or any conspiracy, अगर कुछ भी हो रही है against British, अगर कुछ भी कोई भी ऐसा काम कर रहा है, even if a person is having a newspaper in which there is something anti-British is written, then that will also amount to conspiracy against the British. So the objective was, if there is any revolt, if there is any conspiracy against the British, before its starting, मतलब शुरू होने से पहले ही उसको खत्म कर देना है. So that was the basic objective of the Rowlatt Act. Now what were the provisions? There were very strict provisions. मैंने कल भी बताया था आपको, no दलील, no वकील, no appeal, है ना, कल भी बताया था मैंने आपको. So what were the provisions? The provisions were like police can enter and search a place without warrant. ठीक है, कोई वारंट की जरूरत नहीं है, कहीं भी घुस के कहीं पे भी आप चेक कर लीजिए, तलाशी ले लीजिए. गवर्नमेंट कुड imprison persons on mere suspicion. ठीक है, on the mere on the suspicion, government could imprison persons. ठीक है, suspicion of what? Suspicion of terrorism. Suspicion of terrorism. For how much period? Imprisonment of 2 years. ठीक है, and इसका ट्रायल कहां पे होगा? For this, the British government, it introduced a court, a special court was established. A special court was established which was having 3 high court judges. Which was having 3 high court judges, and if this court has announced a judgment, if this court has pronounced an order, there was no appeal. There was no provision of appeal. कोई appeal का कोई भी provision नहीं था. In addition to it, there was ban on public gatherings. ठीक है, ban on public gatherings. कोई भी public gathering, public meeting, चाहे वो कल्चरल हो, रिलीजियस हो, कुछ भी हो, आप नहीं कर सकते हो. नो पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट, नो पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट, ये भी नहीं कर सकते. ठीक है, so these were the provisions. Now what happened as a reaction? As a reaction, अब reaction क्या हुआ इंडियंस का? The first reaction was like the members in the council, in the executive council, they resigned. The members in the executive council, they resigned, which were उस टाइम पे किसने रिजाइन किया था? मोहम्मद अली जिन्ना,
मदन मोहन मालवीय और मजहर
उल हक.
क्या बात है, क्या बात है, वेरी गुड. मजहर उल हक, like it is MMM, so 3M, you can remember it, 3M. It was like सहवाग जब भी किसी ऐसी जगह पे खेलता था, the name of that place starts with letter M, so he played very well, whether it was Multan or it was Mumbai, कुछ भी ऐसी जगह हो तो he played very well. So MMM, Mohammad Jinnah, then Madan Mohan Malviya, then Mazhar ul Haq, they resigned. Then कॉमन मैन में क्या हुआ? जो कॉमन एक आम आदमी था, आम आदमी पार्टी नहीं, आम आदमी में क्या हुआ? एंगर. अब ये तो बहुत ज्यादा हो गया ना, दिस इज टू मच. मतलब व्हाट आर यू डूइंग? एक तरफ से यू आर गिविंग अस रिफॉर्म्स, है ना, एंड एट द अदर साइड यू आर गिविंग दिस Rowlatt Act. Getting the point? So the common man was very angry. He was very, very, very angry. When Gandhiji came to know about this, he decided to launch Satyagrah. Now this was the time when this word first appeared, Satyagrah. इससे पहले जितने भी खेड़ा सत्याग्रह, चंपारण सत्याग्रह, उसको हमने बाद में सत्याग्रह वर्ड ऐड किया. We have added the word सत्याग्रह later, but this was the first time this word सत्याग्रह it was used. ठीक है, and this is called, yeah, rightly said by Vipul, Rowlatt सत्याग्रह. मुझे नहीं पता था, निखिल के अलावा विपुल को भी एक टॉपिक बहुत पसंद है ना विपुल? ओके, तो he started Rowlatt सत्याग्रह. कहाँ पे स्टार्ट किया? बॉम्बे में स्टार्ट किया. बॉम्बे में स्टार्ट किया. Then it was decided to conduct an all India strike. All India strike, ऐसा पहले नहीं हुआ था. All India strike. And what was the date selected for this all India strike के लिए? Vipul, what was the date which was selected for this all India?
13th April, I think.
No, it was not 13th April. Yeah, क्या बात है, very good Arpit. It was 6 April 1919. अभी जो डेट्स है ना वो डेज में चलेंगी, अभी ईयर्स में डेट्स नहीं चलेंगी, अब डेट्स डेज में चलेंगी. सो प्लीज डेट्स पे ध्यान देना है. अभी अब जो डेट्स चलेंगी डेज 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 इस टाइप से। सो 1919 में 6 अप्रैल को मास प्रोटेस्ट हुआ एंड स्ट्राइक ऑफ ऑल इंडिया लेवल। ठीक है, दिस थिंग हैपेंड। नाउ सब कुछ पीसफुल था। इन पंजाब थिंग्स वर गोइंग फाइन, पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट हो रहे थे। ठीक है, पीसफुल प्रोटेस्ट, लाइक शॉप्स वर शट डाउन, जितनी भी शॉप्स थी आराम से शट हो गई, सब कुछ हो गया। सो एट दैट टाइम टू लीडर्स ऑफ पंजाब, द नेम ऑफ द टू लीडर्स वर
Satyapal and Saifuddin Kichlo.
वेरी गुड, विपुल एंड रुखसान। रुखसान आप भी बोलो।
Sir, it was Dr. Satyapal and Dr. Saifuddin Kichlew.
Yeah, Saifuddin Kichlew and Satyapal Malik. So these were the very famous leaders of Punjab. उन्होंने इन दोनों ने एक what they did, they called one protest meeting. So as they called protest meeting, the Britishers arrested them. ठीक है, ब्रिटिशर्स ने इन दोनों को अरेस्ट कर दिया। So people were like, why you have arrested them? They were calling for peaceful protest. Now, what's the reason of arresting these two persons? So again, जो एक होता है ना, anger. This is a balloon. It is a balloon. So it was anger when the revolt was Rowlatt Act was introduced. Then in Punjab, it was to its limits. Now it can just burst anytime. And such is the situation now, where these things were happening where? In Punjab. Then what happened on 11th of April? Martial law लगा दिया गया पंजाब में। What is martial law? Martial law is military law. ठीक है, martial law लगा दिया। At that time, who was the governor of Punjab? The lieutenant governor of Punjab was General,
Marshal Lord Dyer.
Michael Dyer.
Michael Dwyer.
Michael Dyer.
Dwyer. ठीक है, not Dyer, O'Dwyer. If this was the person, then who was Dyer? Then who was the Dyer? तो Dyer कौन था?
You are now unmuted.
He was the military officer. Okay, he was the military officer. People gets confused between these two persons. And Sardar Udham Singh, he killed which of these? Dyer or Dwyer?
The Dwyer.
Very good. He killed Dwyer. ठीक है. So coming back. So what happened? 11th of April की हम बात कर रहे थे। 11th April में क्या हुआ था? पंजाब में मार्शल लॉ लगा दिया गया, मार्शल लॉ लग गया। Now 13th of April, on the day of Baisakhi, 13th of April, Baisakhi का दिन था, and the people from the neighboring villages plus Amritsar, they have accumulated in a very famous park, very famous Bagh. Jallianwala Bagh was a very famous Bagh, and it like cultural events, religious events were there in that Bagh. So on 13th of April, people were accumulated there. Okay. The problem of this Bagh was that it was having a very narrow entry. It was having a very narrow entry. And the other problem was people were unaware that city was under the curfew. The martial law had been imposed because at that time there was no internet. इंटरनेट तो था नहीं, है ना, व्हाट्सएप भी नहीं था। अभी तो आप कोई भी चीज एक व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भेजो एंड आधा घंटे में वो पूरे देश में वो वायरल हो जाती है। आधा घंटे तो बहुत ज्यादा बोल दिया मैंने, ठीक है। सो देयर वाज नो इंटरनेट, सो पीपल वर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ दिस थिंग, है ना। एंड मार्शल लॉ ने क्या, एज पर दिस जो लॉ था उसके हिसाब से 3 से ज्यादा लोग इकट्ठे नहीं हो सकते थे। People more than 3 could not get accumulated at any place, है ना। So now this was the thing. So when the military officer Dyer, he came to know that people have gathered in a park. He came along with his troops. He came along with his troops. He entered. He surrounded the persons, and at that time, not at that time, till day, there was a well present in that Jallianwala Bagh. There is a well present today also. ठीक है, अगर किसी ने देखा है तो I have seen. So what happened? The troops, without any like कुछ बगैर कुछ बोले, just firing. Just Dyer said fire, and the troops started firing from all sides. Okay, from all sides. So, as per the estimates of Congress and estimate other people, more than 1,000 people died. More than 1,000 people died. Many jumped into this well, to save themselves. But if someone is jumping in a well, so he is jumping to die actually. He can just escape from the bullets, but he cannot escape from the well. Okay, so this was the thing. This happened in Jallianwala Bagh, and at that time 1650 rounds were fired. इतनी गोलियां चली थी, 1650. क्या बात है, बिल्कुल 1650 गोलियां, दैट टू पॉइंट ब्लैंक रेंज, है ना, बिल्कुल नजदीक से पॉइंट ब्लैंक रेंज, सब बगैर किसी डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के just opened the fire. So as per the official estimates, how many people died? As per the official estimates, official figures के हिसाब से how many people died? No, 1,000 was the estimate of the Indians. As per the official estimate, very good, 379. Very good, Ruxana. As per the official figures, 379 people died. But just imagine 1650 rounds, people ekdam pass mein, at the figure of 379. So it is unmatched. Then after that, what happened? So this thing was like opposed from everyone. Everyone criticized. What have you done this thing? So Montague, what Montague did, he set up one committee. The name of the committee was the Hunter Commission. So is this the same Hunter who was the head of that education commission, or is this the different Hunter? This Hunter is the same or different?
Different one.
दोनों हंटर में कंफ्यूज नहीं होना है, वो दूसरा हंटर था, दूसरा हंटर था. बहुत सारे हंटर होते हैं जो हंटिंग करते हैं, ठीक है. सो दीज आर द डिफरेंट हंटर्स, ठीक है. ओके, सो हंटर कमिटी बनाई, एंड देयर वर 3 इंडियंस आल्सो इन दिस कमिटी. This we'll see in the coming slides, which were the Indians. One was Seetalwad, one was Jagat Narayan, one was Ahmad Khan. So these were some of the persons. Now this committee, what it condemned the act of Dyer. Dyer ने जो किया बहुत गलत किया, but it did not impose any penalty or any this punishment on Dyer. ठीक है, उसने कुछ भी ऐसा नहीं किया. क्यों नहीं किया? क्योंकि before the passing of Rowlatt Act, one more act was passed. The act was Indemnity Act. And this act was the protection of the officers of British officers. For the protection of British officers, this act was passed, Indemnity Act. So though the Hunter Committee, it condemned Dyer, but it did not mention any penalty. Okay. So this was the view of Hunter Committee. What was the view of the British Parliament? So at that time, there were 2 houses in British Parliament. One was the House of Commons, and the other was House of Lords. है ना, यही दो हाउस थे ना, हाउस ऑफ लॉर्ड्स एंड हाउस ऑफ कॉमन्स. So this House of Commons, it also condemned the act of Dyer. उसने भी बोला कि डायर ने जो किया गलत किया. It is un-British. It is un-British, unbecoming of a British. This is not done. ठीक है? It condemned. Very good. So lots of respect for House of Commons. है ना? Then House of Lords ने क्या किया? House of Lords. Did this also condemn House of Lords? No, this didn't condemn. In fact, it praised Dyer. It praised Dyer. है ना? And one thing I just forgot to mention, when this Hunter committee, it gave its report and it found Dyer guilty. It found Dyer guilty. So the salary of Dyer was reduced to 50%. Salary of Dyer was reduced to 50%. ठीक है? And he would be given the pensions. वो सब कुछ तो था. But salary was reduced to 50%. So just remember this thing. His salary was reduced to 50%. ये भी आने वाले टाइम में काम आएगा. Then House of Lords, what House of Lords did? He praised the act of Dyer. House of Lords ने एक motion pass किया. A motion in support of Dyer was passed. ठीक है? A motion in support of Dyer. It was passed by House of Lords. Remember this thing. Second, there was a newspaper, Morning Post, which was published in England. Morning Post. Now this Morning Post, when it was learned by the Morning Post that the salary of Dyer has reduced, it started collecting funds for Dyer. It started collecting funds for Dyer, and देखते ही देखते 30,000 pounds it accumulated for Dyer. 30,000 pounds at that time, है ना? 30,000 pounds इकट्ठे हो गए Dyer के support में. And you know, now one person was there who was also contributor. Okay, have you just read the book Jungle Book? Jungle Book पढ़ी है? Jungle Book पता होगा सबको, है ना? बहुत famous Jungle Book. Jungle Book was written by Jungle Book was written by
I don't know his name, sir.
It was written by Rudyard Kipling.
Rudyard
ठीक है?
Kipling.
Yeah, it was written by Rudyard Kipling. This person was a British, and actually his birth was in India. He was born in India. As his father was posted in India, so he was born in India, but he was a British. So he had written this book, Jungle Book. So Rudyard Kipling was one of the donors of this fund, which was accumulated into 30,000 pounds. इसमें Rudyard Kipling ने काफी पैसा उसने दान में दिया था. ठीक है? So Rudyard Kipling also liked the act of Dyer. ठीक है? One thing is this. Another thing. So was there any Indian? Just think, would there be any Indian or any Indian body which would be appreciating Dyer? क्या ऐसा हो सकता है?
Never,
Is it
sir.
possible?
Never.
Never.
Never, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? Is it possible? Ritika is saying it should not, but actually it was not. It was not. Someone supported Dyer. Now, who was it? Who supported Dyer? Any idea? Anyone? Any idea? Any idea? Muslim League? No, Subhoji. No. Muslim League इस time पे तो ना इतनी भी बुरी नहीं थी. No. It was the clergy. It was the clergy of Golden Temple. It was the clergy of Golden Temple. What do you mean by clergy? Clergy क्या होता है?
Sir, the church priest.
The priests, the persons who are just maintaining all the things, है ना? So
Sir,
the clergy of Golden Temple. Golden Temple. What is the real name of Golden Temple? Anyone? No one. My God. Har Mandir Sahib. Har Mandir Sahib. This is the real name of Golden Temple. Okay. So the clergy of Golden Temple, it honored Dyer. It honored Dyer. Just think. When I read this thing, so how to tell you what's there in my mind and in my heart. So it honored Dyer, this clergy of Golden Temple. In fact, this clergy declared that Dyer was a Sikh. So this thing, yeah, boiling of blood, yeah, Kritika. आज सबका blood boil हो गया. Okay, now Vandita is asking why. Before answering the Vandita's answer, this became one of the reason why Gurudwara reform movement was launched. Gurudwara reform movement. We will be doing this thing in the coming classes. So Gurudwara reform movements लाए गए थे. So this became one of the reason because these people were very corrupt. These people were very corrupt. है ना? Who? The clergy of these temples, these Gurudwaras, they were very corrupt, and the British favored them. So in reciprocity, they also favored Dyer. Getting the point? That's why they declared Dyer to be a Sikh. Okay. Yeah, Priya, Akali movement. बाद में जो movement आया गया, that movement was called as Akali movement, and बाद में उन सबको वहां से हटाया गया जितने भी महंत थे, है ना, जितने भी महंत थे उन सबको हटाया गया, and Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, it was established in the year 1925. In the year 1925, Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committees, they were established in the year 1925. ठीक है? So this was the Rowlatt Act and the Jallianwala Bagh. So these things are clear to all of you? Shall we see the slides? Clear to all of you? अभी सब थोड़ा देर के लिए अपना blood boiling का temperature थोड़ा सा कम कर लें. Okay. अभी सब कुछ खत्म हो गया. हिस्ट्री है, रात गई बात गई. ओके, नो प्रॉब्लम, सबको माफ कर देते हैं. चलो कोई बात नहीं. जो लोग माफ करते हैं वो सबसे बड़े वही होते हैं. ठीक है? Okay, now we'll see the slides. Rowlatt Act. Rowlatt Act was an extension to the Defence of India Regulations Act 1915. It was passed in the year March 1919 and it was officially called as Anarchical and Revolutionary Crimes Act 1919. Sorry. It was based on the recommendations of Rowlatt Commission, which was headed by a British judge, Sir Sidney Rowlatt, to investigate the seditious conspiracies. Okay. All the elected Indian members of the Imperial Legislative Council, they voted against the bill, and the members resigned, which were those persons: Triple M, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Madan Mohan Malviya, and Mazhar ul Haq. The act allowed arrest of Indians. Just a second, give me 1 minute. Okay, the act allowed arrest of Indians without warrant on mere suspicion of treason, देशद्रोह. किसी पे suspicion भी हुआ ना, just mere छोटा सा suspicion भी हुआ, जैसे मैंने बताया, if a person is keeping a newspaper in which something anti-British is published, only if a person is having that newspaper cutting, then that person would be arrested. ठीक है? Yeah, Preksha, you want to say anything?
No, sir, I just reconnected.
Okay. A special court was constituted in which there were 3 high court judges who will try the suspects, and there was no court of appeal. Kahin koi appeal kuch nahi. If an order has been passed, it is passed. The wartime restrictions, जो World War I के टाइम पे restrictions थी, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly के ऊपर, they were reimposed. The press was under the strict control of the government. So these were the provisions of Government of India Act 1919. Then yesterday I was saying something, na expectation. Yesterday I was telling something, I don't know why I was saying it, but yesterday I was saying something on expectation. So Indians were expecting self-rule as a reward for their contribution to the war. But actually they got what? Actually, they got Montfort reforms whose scope was very limited. है ना? Also, Rowlatt Act, which was so repressive. So the Indians felt betrayed. उनको लगा कि उनको धोखा दे दिया गया है. ठीक है? The Indians felt betrayed. Nikhil is asking something. How did General Dyer die? Nikhil, General Dyer die of what we say, heart attack types of a thing, na? उसको stroke पड़ा था, heart stroke. He was having stroke. His brain was also attacked, hemorrhage, something type of a thing, and he died. ठीक है? No one killed him. उसको मारने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी थी. ठीक है, उसका ब्रेन में कुछ प्रॉब्लम हुआ था, हैमरेज, या हैमरेज इज द टर्म, हैमरेज, ब्रेन हैमरेज. ठीक है, ब्रेन. ओके. Then Gandhiji called Rowlatt Act as the Black Act. Now please remember this. For which act Gandhiji gave the term Black Act? है ना, वैसे तो बहुत आसान है. He called for a mass protest at an all India level. He organized a Satyagraha Sabha. And what was the form of the protest? Form of protest क्या होगा? What would be the form of protest? It would be the Hartal, strike, that would be nationwide, है ना? Which would be accompanied by fasting as well as prayer. ठीक है? Okay, then in Punjab, situation became very explosive due to the wartime repression. अब पंजाब में already wartime repression था, recruitments थे, forcible recruitments, diseases थी, so army was called in. ठीक, army बुला ली गई उस पंजाब में. And then what happened? Okay, just see, this is the Jallianwala Bagh. These are the marks of bullets which are this is a pic of present day pic. ठीक है? Still these marks are there, and these have been like these squares have been built around these marks so that visitors can see these are the places where these bullets were reflected, and many bullets were are there in the walls. Then what happened? Now we'll talk about Jallianwala Bagh. Initially there was no violence. The shops were shut down. The streets were empty. There were two leaders, Saifuddin Kichlu and Dr. Satyapal Malik. They addressed protest meetings. So both of them were arrested by the British officials. This arresting of whom? Saifuddin Kichlu and Satyapal Malik. उससे क्या हुआ? Resentment among Indians जो पंजाबीज थे बहुत ज्यादा गुस्से में हो गए. Indians came out in thousands to show their solidarity with their leaders. The protest turned violent because the police resorted to firing, in which some of the protesters were killed. Then riots began. ठीक है, riots began in which 5 Englishmen were also killed. In fact, there was one English women missionary. The name of the woman was Marcella Sherwood, who was beaten up on a street when she was going on a bicycle. एक साइकिल पे जा रही थी लेडी Sherwood, Marcella Sherwood, and she was also beaten up. Now, when this thing happened, Dyer को बड़ा बुरा लगा. Okay, इन्होंने English women, that to a missionary, उसको पिटाई कर दी. Okay, that is a very bad thing actually, है ना? ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए था. Okay, इसका बदला मैं लेके रहूंगा टाइप्स. वो पागल हो गया. Then the Lieutenant Governor of Punjab was Sir Michael O. Dwyer, not Dyer but Dwyer, and Brigadier General Reginald Dyer was the senior British officer with the responsibility to impose martial law and restore order in the Punjab. The city returned to calm and the protests were being held were peaceful. ठीक है, क्योंकि मार्शल लॉ भी था, थोड़े एक दो दिन बाद में सिटी में थोड़ा शांति हो गई. He proclaimed on 13th April forbidding people from leaving the city without a pass. He said कोई भी without a pass बाहर ना आएगा ना जाएगा. No one will be organizing demonstrations or processions or would be assembling in groups of more than 3. ठीक है? So this was the orders which were passed, but the locals were unaware of these orders. And then what happened? A large crowd of people, mostly from the neighboring villages, they gathered. Gathered where? In Jallianwala Bagh on 13th of April, which was also a Baisakhi day. It was then that Brigadier Dyer, General Dyer, he arrived, his troops surrounded, then blockaded the only exit point and opened the fire on the orders of Dyer. The crowd was obviously unarmed. अभी crowd वहां पे कोई अपने पास guns और bombs को लेके आई थी. So crowd was unarmed. So as per the British official sources, 379 Indians were dead and approximately 1100 were wounded. In fact, what he did, General Dyer, when these people were like lying, they were lying, the dead bodies were lying, then they were lying wounded. So he retreated. The army didn't help the people even, so that they could be given medical facilities. No, they retreated. And when this thing was asked by this Hunter committee to General Dyer, why you didn't help people? Then Dyer said that why should I? It was not my duty. It was not my duty. Then Hunter committee also asked कि क्या बगैर फायरिंग के उन लोगों को वहां से नहीं हटाया जा सकता था? Then Dyer said yes, they could have been removed without any firing. Committee said why? Then why the hell you fired there? So Dyer said if I had not used the force, अगर मैंने force use नहीं किया होता, so no doubt those people would have gone from there, but after some time they would have again come back and they would have laughed at me. So how would I just swallow this thing? So I ordered fire. So this was the answer of the General Dyer to the Hunter committee, because if a commission is set up, then it has to give its report, and in its report what it needs to do, it needs to investigate, and in this investigation it needs to just collect these statements किसके? Statements of the accused, of the perpetrator, of the witness gawah, and then it just ends up with a conclusion. ठीक है, ऐसे एक कमिटी डिसाइड करती है. अभी भी ऐसे ही होता है. अभी जैसे at present a committee has been, if a committee has been made on this Hathras incident, so what will it do? It will record the statements and all this. ठीक है, this thing is happening till date. Okay. Then what happened? Okay, after this thing, ये जो जलियांवाला बाग में हुआ, but after this thing happened, 13th April के बाद, situation became pathetic. Now, why these two pics here? This lady was Marcella Sherwood. I told you na, when she was cycling on a street and people had beaten her up. है ना? You remember this thing? So on that same street, people were made to crawl. They could not even walk on that street. They were made to crawl on that street, that too on their bellies. है ना? So that was the thing which were resorted to by General Dyer at that time. on 14, 15, 16 on the days which followed this incident. Okay. Nupur is saying something. Dwyer was killed by Udham Singh, not Dyer. Yeah, Nupur. Nupur, General O. Dwyer, Lieutenant Governor tha na, General O. Dwyer. He was killed. He was killed. I guess in 1941, if I am correct. 1941. It was the month of March. 1940 or 41. Vipul, are you sure? 1940. I guess it is 1940 or 41. 40 or 41 in the month of March, and in the month of July, this Udham Singh was hanged. And Udham Singh, he took one more name. He took one more name. Anyone? What name this Udham Singh took? There was a name which this Udham Singh took when he was arrested. What was the name? Anyone? The name was Ram Muhammad, something like this. Ram Muhammad and Ram Muhammad Singh, something such type of a name, which was having one part as a Hindu name, another as Muslim, another as Sikh. Ram Muhammad Singh, something such type of a name. It was taken up by this Udham Singh. Yeah, Ram Muhammad Singh Azad. Yeah, Ram Muhammad Singh Azad. Azad was also there. I forgot this Azad. Ram Muhammad Singh Azad. Okay. So now you know why these two pics here. Cycle. This is Marcella Sherwood, and these are the Indians who needed to crawl on the street where she was beaten. Okay. This is the pic of present day well, which is situated in the Jallianwala Bagh. At present, this structure has been constructed over this well, and this is the interior of the well. Goli khao ya fir kuएं में कूद जाओ, and people visit. We can visit there. Anyone can visit there. And in fact, this Golden Temple and Gurudwara, these are on the same road and very near to each other. Okay. Then Hunter Committee of Inquiry. Now we'll see the Hunter Committee of Inquiry. This Hunter Committee of Inquiry, it was constituted by whom? It was constituted by the Secretary of State for India. And who was the Secretary of State for India at that time? It was the Montague. Montague, Edwin Montague was the Secretary of State for India. He ordered that a committee of inquiry will be formed to investigate the matter. And what would be the name of the committee? The name of the committee would be Disorders Inquiry Committee. Okay? If in exam, this thing is asked, who was leading the Disorders Inquiry Committee? So answer would be William Hunter. And who had constituted this Disorders Inquiry Committee? The answer would be Lord Montague. Okay. Then the chairman of this committee was Lord William Hunter. Lord William Hunter was the chairman of this committee. This commission, it condemned the act. This commission condemned the act of Dyer. Savina is saying. Yeah, Disha. Savina is saying, who was the first to die? Dyer or Dwyer? Savina, it was General Dyer. This Dyer. ये डायर की मौत पहले हो गई थी. ये डायर तो 1927 में डेथ हो गई थी. ठीक है, 19 he died 1927. Okay. But it did not impose any disciplinary action against him. No action. And I told you the reason why no action was imposed against him. You can just write there what was the name of the act which was there at that time. What was the name of the act? I told you just now. Indemnity Act. Very good. Indemnity Act was passed by the government for protection of its officers. Just write somewhere. Indemnity Act was passed by the government for the protection of its officers. Okay. This act, Indemnity Act, was also called as Whitewashing Bill. Whitewashing बिल। किसी ने कुछ भी गलती करी है उसके ऊपर व्हाइट वॉश कर दो और उसको कोई भी प्रॉब्लम में ना फंसने दो, ठीक है। Indemnity Act. So by when this thing comes, so there are some people who say AFSPA is also like an indemnity act. AFSPA को कंपेयर करते हैं indemnity act से। You know what is AFSPA? AFSPA का पता है किसी को? Anyone? Is there anyone in the class who is aware of this AFSPA? Arpit?
Yes, it's the
Sir,
Armed
Armed
Forces.
Forces Special Power Act.
क्या बात है, सबीना को पता है। अर्पित को तो पक्का पता ही होना था, आई नो, बट वेरी गुड सबीना। Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So what are the special powers given?
Sir, it is for the disturbed states, sir. Generally includes all the.
This is only for disturbed state. An area has to be declared as disturbed. Then only this act comes into power. AFSPA, है ना? Okay. Later on we'll do it. AFSPA. I'll tell you क्या होता है AFSPA in detail. Okay. पहले कंप्लीट कर लेते हैं हंटर कमेटी को. The Indian National Congress appointed its own non-official committee. Now it was the turn of Congress कि okay, we will also form a committee. We will also form a committee, but was this committee was having any power? No, because it had formed its own committee. किसको पे report submit करेगी? किसी को भी नहीं. It was not having any power, but then also at least उन्होंने एक responsibility का काम किया, and it also formed its own committee, and the members of its committee were Motilal Nehru, C.R. Das, Abbas Tayyibji, Jaykar, and Gandhi. These were the members of the committee. It criticized Dyer's Act as inhuman. Hunter Committee. Now we are talking about Hunter Committee. Hunter Committee criticized किया उसने Dyer's Act, उसने बोला this was an inhuman act. This act of Dyer was inhuman, and also said there could be no justification of introduction of martial law in Punjab, because there were no intelligence, like people were conspiring for anything that would be detrimental for the British rule. Getting the point? There could be no justification in the introduction of martial law in Punjab. इसका आप कोई justification नहीं दे सकते हो Dyer साहब. Dyer was saying that martial law was imposed. Then why these people had assembled there? So the committee told him, how can you justify the martial law? Why you had just introduced the martial law in Punjab? क्या आपको ऐसा लग रहा था क्या कि कोई conspire हो रही है कि ब्रिटिश को उखाड़ फेंकने का कुछ चल रहा है? People were like preparing for revolt or such type of a thing. So these were some of the things. ठीक है? So this was the Hunter Committee of Inquiry and Jallianwala Bagh. So Rowlatt Act, not Rowlatt Act, Government of India Act 1919, then Rowlatt Act, then Jallianwala Bagh, and Hunter Committee obviously a part of it. These things are clear. Government of India Act, Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh Act, Jallianwala Bagh. These things are clear to all of you. Okay. So the next topic is Khilafat. Now, what was this Khilafat? अब ये क्या है Khilafat? Khilafat. What was this Khilafat? Khilafat issue. What do you mean by Khilafat? What is Khilafat? Khilafat is the institution of Caliph. Institution of Caliph. And what is this Caliph? In Hindi it is called as Khalifa. In Hindi it is called as Khalifa. But ये होता क्या है Caliph? Who was Caliph? Caliph was the religious head of Muslims. Religious head of Muslims. ठीक है, तो अभी आप just think that there are many things that people at this time of at this point of time, we are in 1919. There are many things like people were angry. Just keep these things in mind, because these things will become the cause of the movement. Which movement? Non-cooperation movement. These things will become the cause. Now, which were the things? Just if we recall, number one, the World War One. Now, how World War One was a cause of how it can be a cause? Because the economic hardships were faced by the people, because inflation, huge inflation was there. So number one cause was World War One, because it was this before 1919. Then what was next thing? Next thing was GOI 1919. People were not happy with this. Then the next thing was Rowlatt Act. The next thing was Jallianwala Bagh. Now next fifth, we are into the fifth, Khilafat. We are into the next Khilafat. So Khilafat क्या होता है? Khilafat was the institution of Caliph. And who is a Caliph? Caliph was the religious head of Muslims all over the world. And where this institution was based, at which place? It was in the Ottoman Empire. Ottoman Empire. ठीक है? Ottoman Empire का जो ruler होता था, सुल्तान होता था, he was Caliph. The ruler of Ottoman Empire was actually the Caliph. ठीक है? He was regarded the religious head of the Muslims all over the world, including India. ठीक है? यहाँ तक clear है? So now we'll see what was the issue. The issue, अब issue क्या था? Okay, coming back to World War One. World War One, there were two types of powers. One were allied powers, other were the central powers. In the allied powers, which were the countries? Britain, France, Japan, Russia, Italy. These were the countries. And in the central powers, Nikhil is asking, Ottoman Empire was in Europe. Nikhil, Ottoman Empire, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Armenia, ये वाला जो सारा एरिया है ना नियर टर्की, वो वाला एरिया में Ottoman Empire था. Palestine, ये जितना भी सारा एरिया, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, Egypt, this area was under the Ottoman Empire. ठीक है निखिल? Okay, then central powers, Germany, Austro-Hungary Empire, then was the Ottoman Empire, or we can call it. What happened to my screen? Am I audible? I cannot see anyone. I cannot see the screen. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Just a second. Yeah, take it. Okay, Ottoman Empire, we can also call it as Turkey. Okay. Now, these two were groups which were fighting in the World War One. Ottoman Empire was fighting with Britain. है ना? Ottoman Empire किससे fight कर रहा था? Britain से. And who was the ruler of Ottoman Empire? He was the Caliph. ठीक है? The war ended in 1918. ठीक है? The war, अब war खत्म हो गया. Now जो winners थे, they were putting harsh peace treaties on the countries. On the which countries? The central powers. Which treaty was signed with Germany? Which treaty was signed with Germany? Anyone? Treaty of?
Sir, the Versailles Treaty. Versailles.
Very good, Ritvika and Nikhil. Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles. Okay, which treaty was going to be signed with Turkey? What was the name of the treaty? Very good, Palak. Treaty of Versailles. But with Turkey, it was Treaty of Sèvres. Sèvres is a place in France. ठीक है? Treaty of Sèvres. Treaty of Sèvres साइन की जानी थी किसके साथ में? टर्की के साथ में. And what was in this Treaty of Sèvres? All non-Turkish territories. All non-Turkish territories in the Ottoman Empire will be taken away. Will be taken away from the Turkish Empire. So which were those territories actually? The territories were Palestine, then Iraq, then Egypt, Lebanon, Syria. These places will be taken away from the ruler of the Ottoman Empire. Okay. Now these places are sacred places for Muslims. These places are sacred places for Muslims for different. हर जगह पे कुछ ना कुछ ऐसा है कि जो Muslims के लिए sacred है. ठीक है. So जो Muslims थे, they became angry. They became angry because the harsh treaty was being signed with the head of the Muslims. So all the Muslims, they were like angry. Okay. Okay. We will continue this topic. Jitin sir wants to talk to you. We will continue this topic tomorrow. And after this Khilafat issue, we will be doing non-cooperation movement. Okay. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.